Hi, so I want to give a shout out to my granddaughter and my bonus granddaughter, and I want to let them know that they're getting a package in the next week or two, 10 to 12 days, I think it said, coming from Knit Picks, and we're going to do some lessons. So I just wanted to welcome them to our knitting family. I'm really excited to teach my family girls, and I think maybe my daughter will be joining. We will kind of see. Okay, so in your package, girls, you will be getting 2 skeins of Brava yarn, and Brava is an acrylic. It's very soft and it's very easy to work with, but for young people who are busy and on the go and don't have a lot of time, Brava is a nice worsted wool that you can work with. You don't have to fuss about washing and drying it like you do wool. So this is a really nice wool to start with. It'll hold up real well, and it knits up very nicely. The other thing that you're going to get in your package is I sent you size 8 needles. Now, you'll be getting different colored ones. I sent 3 different colored ones, and this is one of the colors I think you're getting, and it's called Majestic Wood set, but you're only getting the size 8. Again, if you like knitting, girls, I'll send you more, but what you can see, mine are cubes, and I like them because of my arthritis. They don't roll around in my hands. They're really easy to work with. But this is a size 8, and it has its point, but then it also, on the other side, I don't know if you can see that, it has a little screw right there in the middle. You can screw it in. So the next thing that's going to come is a 24-inch. I think this might be a 32, but you girls are getting a 24-inch cable. And you will be getting this little packet that has a couple things in it. These are end caps, and so if you're ever knitting something and you want to take a break but you need your size 8 needles, these will screw on. You can take your needles off and then screw these on to the ends, and then you don't lose your knitting. They stay right on the cable. So if you really enjoy knitting and you decide to get more needles and more cables, they have 16, 24, 32, 40-inch long cables, and so the 24 is a really nice size. We can do a lot of things with the 24. And then the other thing you're going to get is your key, and you want to guard this with your life. This is very important. If you get a set, you'll get 2 keys, but I am very particular of my keys because if you lose it, it's a little bit hard to find something that will work to tighten up your needles on your cables. So let's go ahead and do that first. When you look at your cables, they have 2 metal ends like this, and your needles are going to go on these ends. So I'm going to kind of warm up my cable a little bit just by running it through my warm hand so that it's not quite so twisty, because I twist mine into really small circles. It's still going to be twisty. So you're going to take that little end and you're going to take this little screw and you're just going to go ahead and work that on. And once you get it worked on, you're going to take your little key, and there are 2 holes. If you look at it, there's one hole that goes the whole way through, and that's the one you want to find. And then there's one hole that I can't even get my key into, so that's okay. So you want to take it and put it in the top hole so that your key is kind of like that. Now I'm going to hold mine like this, and I'm going to tighten, not terribly tight, but just so that I know that's going to hold while I knit. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to go ahead and put my needle on that screw, and I keep twisting until it gets down to this, and then I'm going to go ahead and use my key, and I will tighten that up pretty nicely. Okay, now again, I'm going to put this away so that I don't lose it, because this is quite crucial. You do not want to lose that. That's quite crucial to your knitting. You can buy them. I've never had to buy them because I just don't lose them. Okay, so we have our needles ready. And rather than buy the straight needles, I like to start my students out on circular needles, because with a needle about this long, you can just about make anything. You can make socks, you can make hats, scarves, and the nice thing about it is you only have one piece. You don't have two pieces like when you use the straight needles, because the straight needles, if you lose one, ouch. Whereas this, it's all connected. So the first thing I want to teach you is how to cast on. Now, there are many, many ways of casting on. There are tighter casting on. There are cast-ons you can use if you're really particular about how your knit pearls look like. You can do a particular one for that. But the one I want to teach you is one of the easiest cast-ons, but it's also one of the most stretchy. And so this cast-on is perfect if you're making a hat, a toque, gloves, socks. It's very stretchy. So this is a perfect cast on, and we will learn other cast ons later. But the first thing I want you to do is find the end of your yarn, hold it on your two fingers with your thumb, and I want you to wrap it once. And then the second time, I kind of want you to take it behind the first wrap that you've done. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my needle under the first wrap, over the second wrap, and I'm going to pull that through and tighten it. And so basically we've made a little slip knot. So if you just want to make a slip knot, that's fine too. Now you shouldn't have a great big long tail, and the reason you don't want a great big long tail is because you don't want to start knitting with this. If you had a big long tail, you might inadvertently start knitting with that tail, and we don't want to do that. Okay, so casting on, and that's all we're going to do today. I'm just going to have you practice casting on. Casting on with this very stretchy cast on is half of your battle with knitting. So what you want to do is you want to take your right hand, if you're right-handed, your right hand needle, and if you see there's a little knot right here, I'm going to take my needle up through that and you can walk it right across your, mine's metal, but you can walk it right across your needle. Once you have it between there, we're going to take our working, I call this our working yarn. This comes from our big skein of yarn. And we want to go from the back to the front. So between your needles, you want to go from the back to the front. Once you've done that, then you want to, and I generally walk my right hand needle down my left hand needle. That way I don't get it stuck in anything. And once I do that, then I make them equal, both points up. And I will take my left hand needle and I will go between that stitch, and I will take my right hand needle out and I will pull. Now you have 2 stitches on there. Let's do it again very slowly. I'm going to the top stitch that I have. I'm going to go ahead and hang on just a minute. I'm going to go ahead and put my camera down so that you can see just a little bit better. Okay, there we go. I can't zoom in and out on this, so I have to move it. Okay, so we're going to find our top, the one closest to our point, and we're going to go ahead and take our needle. You don't want to split stitches, you just want to get it kind of, you can see that little corner there, you want to get it to go up there. You want to take your thread, pull it from the back to the front, and then I'm going to slide my needle down. I'm going to catch that thread. Now I don't want to take it off yet. I want to go ahead and make both of my needles even, which means both of my tips are pointing up. Once I've done that, then I'm going to take my left hand needle and I'm going to go ahead and go between those threads, put it on the left hand needle and pull my right hand needle out. Let's do it again. So we're going to go ahead and go up there, wrap it front to back or back to front, roll it down. It's on this one. We want to make them equal, and you can pull it a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and take my left hand needle between those legs, we call them, of the stitch, and I will take my right hand needle out. Now this is where you can go ahead and tighten that up if you want. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches on, and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it a little bit faster. I'm going to take it up between my legs, pull it around from the back to the front, catch it on this needle, equalize them, and then the legs of my right hand, I take my left needle and I tighten it up. So this is half of a knit stitch actually. So if we're going to go ahead and make a scarf, I would suggest that you cast on about 15 to 20 stitches. And so I'm just going to go ahead and start getting my stitches cast on, and you can follow along because I want to show you how easy it is to knit if you know how to do this cast on. Let me pull some yarn up here. So what do we have? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, I'm going to put 20 on, then I'll check it, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Now, I don't think this is going to be wide enough for a scarf. I'm going to pull them apart a little bit. That's about how wide your scarf would be. So let's go ahead and put 10 more on. 30, and it will open up a little bit after we knit some. So there's 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. Let me do that slower. I do this, but then I kind of put my thumb between it, and then I throw it on. It just makes it go a little bit faster. 28, 29, I believe I have 30 on here. So I'm going to count just to make sure. Now, the way I count is I count what's on here. I go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 2, 4, 6, 8, 30. Perfect. Okay, so I'm hoping 30 is going to be enough. So I'm going to show you something really cool. Now, when we knit, basically our yarn is in the back and our needle goes in the front. But I'm going to teach you a really pretty way to make pretty edges. If you just start knitting all rows, you'll have little bumps on the edges, and some people like that, and that's okay if you do. Go ahead and do that. But if you take your thread and put it in front of your cable like that, and then take your stitch, take your needle, your right hand needle, as if you're going across, put it through that first stitch, and then take it off the left hand needle and leave it on the right hand needle. Now you want to prepare yourself to knit, so you're going to take that thread that's in the front and put it in the back. Okay, and then we're just going to knit. Now knitting stitches are very easy. It's basically part of how we cast on. We put our needle between the two legs, we wrap it front to back, and this is where we go ahead and take it off of our left hand needle. Let's do that again. We put our right hand needle through the yarn, wrap it back to front, and once we have it on that, we pull it off the left hand needle. So see, when you cast on with this easy cast on, you have half of your stitch knit already. So let's do it again. We're going to go up, and you can see I'm going between, this is the front leg and this is the back leg, and so I'm going between those legs, and I'm going to bring my yarn from the back to the front, and once I see that it's on my right hand needle, I can take it off my left hand needle. Let's do it again. Up, back to front, it's caught, off, up, back to front, caught, off. So let's go ahead and knit all of these stitches on our left hand needle, and you want to try and work towards getting an even tempo on your, not tempo, but tension on your thread, so that it will kind of look a little bit neater if you can kind of keep the same tension. You don't want it too tight and you don't want it too loose. The other thing I am going to tell you, some people when they're knitting, they will, this one I'm not, the left hand needle I'm not too worried about, it's the right hand needle. Some of them will just knit on that very small edge, and if you do that, you're going to have very tight stitches. Now, it's okay to start that way, but once you come around, you need to make sure to pull that down so that it's on the big part of your needle. Otherwise, your knitting will get tighter and tighter and tighter. And you can kind of see how I do that. I bring it through and then I push it so that my tension kind of stays the same. So we're going to work towards making a scarf first. And this is the first project I have ever done with a brand new student, because it's one of the easiest. Now when you get to the last stitch, same thing. And you can see we have one whole row done. So once we have one whole row done, and you've done it on a circular needle, but you can do flat things on a circular needle. Excuse me, I'm going to have some tea. So once we've done that, once we've gotten to the end of our knitting, oh, and that's going to make a nice scarf. That's about how wide your scarf will be. That'll be perfect. So once we've done that, we're just going to go ahead and turn it so that our working yarn is off of the right, and our end is off of the left. So what I do is I try to get all of my needles, or my stitches pretty much, especially for this small of a project, I'll try to get them all kind of pushed up. Now you'll see me, I will use all of my fingers. I hold the stitches in place pretty much back here, and this will come with time. Don't worry about it if you're not able to do it right now. But this tail, I'm going to hold with my little finger. I pull it down against my left hand needle and I hold it so that it doesn't get in the way. And again, we want to make sure that our yarn is in front of our needle and our cable. We want to take the tips of our needles, and we're going to take the first stitch off this way by going with your right hand needle. We want to go right to left through that stitch. We're going to pull it off, and I'm going to tighten it up a little bit. Then we're going to take our thread between those needles and push it to the back. We knit with our yarn to the back. So let's go ahead and knit this next row. Now we're just going to knit them all. It's the first stitch that you do this with, and it really only works if you're doing all knit stitches. Knitting in the front and knitting in the back. If you're purling in the back, there's a different way to make the nice edge that we're going to have with this technique. I also want to encourage you not to be in a hurry. If you have to go slowly at first, remember we all did when we started knitting. It's a skill, and your mind will start to memorize your muscles. And it's called muscle memory. As teachers, we learn about muscle memory with children, and especially with young children who are learning to write. Muscle memory happens when you do the same thing with your muscles over and over and over, and that's why writing becomes just automatic. A lot of times you don't even think about what you're writing. You don't think about the circles or the straight lines. And this will happen with your knitting also. Your brain will start to make patterns from your hand back up to your brain, so that you start to almost memorize what you're doing without thinking too much about it. But when you're first starting to knit, I suggest you just go ahead and go slowly. Think about what you're doing so that you get it right, and then it becomes a habit. Okay, we're on our third stitch, and I'm going to pull my needle. It's behind my yarn. I'm going to take my needle, and I'm going to go, let me push that under there so it doesn't get in our way. I'm going to go from the right to the left. I'm going to slip it off. I'm not knitting or anything. I'm going to tighten it up a little bit and put that yarn between my needles to the back. And I pull it just a little bit tight, not terribly. And then I'm going to knit my third row. Now we're going to talk about some other things in just a minute, but let's go ahead and finish our third row. I think we can talk about it after we have our third row finished. Sometimes when we're learning a new thing, we want to just get to be perfect right now. We want to be able to do our first thing perfect right now. And basically, that's really hard. There are a few people that can do that, but I suggest enjoy your process. Don't get in a hurry to get everything done. Enjoy the way the needles go. I will tell you from experience, I read an article about knitting, how knitting is really good for people who are depressed or who are having issues, just having a hard time. Sometimes I used to suffer with seasonal affective disorder when we lived in the Midwest. There was no sun, very little sun in the winter. And so I would get a little downhearted, and it was very hard, very hard. And what helps that is actually knitting. Knitting will actually help you with that because the repetitive. The article was a medical journal, and it talked about the repetitiveness of knitting and how it helps to calm your brain, how it helps to make better brain patterns, better brain waves. So knitting is kind of a really, it's medicine. It's medicine to me. Okay, I'm at the end, so I'm going to turn it again. I'm going to do one more before we start talking about what I wanted to talk about. And again, I have my yarn is in front of my needle, my cable. I'm going to take my right hand needle through that from right to left. I'm going to take it off. I'm going to take my working yarn between those two needles to the back. And then I'm going to go ahead and knit the rest of those stitches. Okay, let's talk about this. Some people hold their yarn like this in their hand. When they do a stitch, they pull it. There are some people you will see the yarn will be on this side and they use their fingers. You'll see how I do it. I have it wrapped around a finger. For me, it's just a little bit faster. It's not as fast as some people can knit, but I enjoy it this way. It just almost seems magical. So I'm going to go ahead and you make yourself comfortable however you want to. And if you're comfortable holding it and moving it this way with just your hand, that's fine too. Don't let anyone tell you that you're doing it wrong. There are no knitting police. You do how makes you comfortable. And for many years when I first was knitting, I did this, and it's a big move. And it took me quite a few years to perfect throwing it over my finger and doing it. So don't feel bad if you just don't feel like you can do that. That's not important. And again, don't let people tell you you're doing anything right or wrong. There are no knitting police. Okay, so let's take a look at this. And I've flipped it again so that my yarn is on the right-hand side. When you look at knitting, this is purling, actually. Hang on, I will be right back. I want to get, yeah. I'm going to show you on this because I have several different things that I've done on this project, and I'm going to use this. So when you look at this, you can see several different textures in this piece of fabric that I've knit. And the first texture that you see, there are all these little bumps everywhere. Now bumps tell me that that's purled. That's a purl stitch, and I will teach you that in another lesson. When we do something like this, it's very smooth. This is when you're knitting on one side and then you're purling on the other side, and you can see the bumps. So this could actually be knit on both sides, just like we're doing here. And I don't remember the pattern well enough to tell you if that's what it is. But anytime you see a bump, you know that's if it's on the wrong side like this, these are purled stitches. They're actually purled. And okay, I can see now that this is all knit. You knit one side, you knit the other side, knit one side, knit the other side, and you will get bumps. Now, if you're knitting and purling, knitting on one side and purling on the other, you will get a very sleek, smooth fabric like this. Now, I was knitting this in the round, so what I did here, this is all knit. This is cable, and you can kind of see it's made into an owl, and we will learn some cabling stitches so that you can knit some things. This is going to be purl because it has the bumps. This is going to be knit because it's all smooth. And this again was knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, so that there were purls on both sides. Okay, so if you're confused, if you're doing a piece which is knit, knit and purl, knit on one side, purl on the other. That's how you can tell. The purl side will always have bumps, but since we are knitting on both sides of this, we're going to have bumps on both sides of this. Now, I was hoping, yeah. If you look at this side, this is how pretty this edge is going to be because we have slipped that first stitch before we knit the next one. Otherwise, you would have a big bump. And it's really, it's not pretty, especially if you're doing something that is has edges, like this is going to have edges. So you want to go ahead and have that really pretty edge. So I'm going to do it one more time with you. I'm going to take my right hand needle, there's my working yarn, take my right hand needle through that first stitch right to left and take it off. Then I'm going to take my working yarn, I'm going to put it between those needles and take it to the back, pull it a little bit tight, and then I'm going to start knitting again. And we're basically just going to have what they call a garter stitch. And the garter stitch is when you just knit both sides, which means then you're going to have the ribs. And that came about, young people are probably too young to remember when we used to wear nylons that weren't pantyhose. They were just up to our thigh, and then we had to use little straps to hang on to them. But at the top there was an area that looked a lot like this, and it's called a garter stitch. That's where we actually hooked our nylons onto our garters. So that's where that came from. Okay, so we have what, 5 rows on, and you can start to see how very pretty that edge is getting. It's looking really nice. Okay, I'm going to let you girls work on this, and I will see you in probably a few days, another week maybe. You should have your yarn by the time we get back on, but go over this once you get your box with your yarn and things, your needles, and put your needles together, and then go ahead and watch this video over and over as many times as you need to so that you can cast on and so that you can start to knit. When we come back, we'll work on it together again. I'm really excited. I want to just welcome Brooklyn into our family. I know she's been here for a while, but I'm Grandma Gifford, and I want to thank Mercy for helping me to get this all together so that we can do these lessons together. This will be a lot of fun for me too. Hope you've enjoyed it, and anybody else in the community who has joined us, I'm so glad you're here too, even if you're not one of my grandchildren. Okay, thank you for coming. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.